We often encourage gallery view because it allows everyone to see everyone else, which is a fun way to do it. And because this will be a little bit more collaborative and interactive, we'll try that for now. But if you just want to focus on the person, you can use speaker view always. So Nate, first, big thank you for being here. Really appreciate your time. Nate just said he finished a 500-person lecture yesterday, so a little bit scaled down version of that. But first, I'd love, Nate, to hear what your experience was like as you maybe got the announcement from San Francisco that the government was moving to a shelter in place, what kind of like that experience was like, and how you initially started to move some of your group classes that you're doing with Project 13 from in-person to actually be on Zoom.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you for having me, Eric. Appreciate you and all you guys for joining in. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules, and happy Friday. To answer that question, those of you guys that don't know, as Eric said, I'm the co-founder of Project 13 Gyms here in San Francisco. And what we do is individualized training in the group setting. So we have a physical location that people come in for class. And so we were running group classes as usual, but as the pandemic was evolving, in the first half of March, even in February, we were hearing from a lot of different people, both experts, some doctors and things like that, that we have exposure and relationships with, and our members who work for the tech companies who are starting to close down and have mandatory work from home. So in the back of our heads, Thomas and I were understanding that things were changing and that there was a small chance that we might get to this situation where businesses were going to close. So what we did was we started to plan for the worst case scenario, right? Hope for the best, plan for the worst. And so we started talking about, well, if we can't run our classes in person, what are we going to do? Do we just shut our business down? Do we close the doors? Do we try to engage in some way? Do we provide programming, via the spreadsheets, whatever it is that people want to receive their programming through? Or could we try to keep our community going? And because of the type of gym that we are, it's only about 150 members, so small community based, and we're all about our relationships with people. Like, that's where we drive a lot of value. Like, we have a really good quality program, and the coaching that we provide is what I think pretty high level, but the thing that keeps everybody together is that community, that interaction, that group and true genuine connection. And so that's what we really wanted to lean into. Is there a way that we can keep people connected? Because especially if this shelter in place does happen, then how do we keep people from feeling like alone and all the things that come with that, the anxiety, the uncertainty, and lack of motivation too. So we're like, all right, we need to get this going in whatever way we can. And I'd actually been running Zoom before this with a personal development course that I do, this 8-week course to help people recapture 10 hours in every week that they have. It's called Building Better Humans. And so I've been running these small group calls once a week. And since we'd already been doing that, I was like, well, let's see if we could run a workout via Zoom. And so Thomas and I talked about the logistics of that, but essentially that was all leading up to the point of shelter in place. So we, planning for the worst case, have some sort of a idea of what we're going to do. And essentially the Monday that Mayor Breed here in San Francisco was announcing the shelter in place, we actually went to half workouts in person. So we had 2 studios, we closed down one of them. So one of them's going with smaller groups, and the other one we're just like, we're going to run Zoom workouts right now before we need to, and see what happens. And we were fortunate we did that, because that afternoon announcement happens, shut down classes for then until now. So that's where we are.
Yeah. By the way, if anyone has questions as we go through this, we can actually use the chat for that. So we don't have like that, like everyone ask same question at once, Zoom disaster. Yeah, Nate, when you were first doing it, or actually after you've been doing it for over a month now, what kind of surprised you about using Zoom as compared to in-person classes?
Well, our big worry was that it just wasn't going to satisfy the need, and we weren't sure what was going to happen with it. But honestly, one of the pleasant surprises is that people have just leaned into it, because there is no other option. The other option is to not connect, not engage with a group of people, not do what you're used to doing, which in our case is working out every day. So the amount that people have leaned into it has been a really pleasant surprise. And one other piece was we changed from hour-long workouts to 45-minute workouts. with 15 minutes after for mental health conversations. So allowing people space to like check in and just be vulnerable. Like you were mentioning at the beginning of this right here, all of us connecting, we're not in this alone. And so giving people space to share and be like, man, I'm having a really rough day. Like the first week or two, the number of people that are like, yeah, I had a bottle of wine every night for the last week.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, while that may not be the healthiest thing, it's also, you're not the only one doing it. There's a lot of other people that are dealing with stress in different ways. So just having the space to share. So those are the two really positive surprises that came out of it.
Yeah. I'm actually curious in how you do that. Like, do you actually structure uh, like social time to be a part of the program? And if so, like, how do you like transition, or do you have specific questions that you like to ask in order to kind of like get the conversation going?
Yeah, great question. And I think Brandon's kind of asking the same question there. How do you get people to share or even show their face on video? The first thing is by setting some expectations and inviting people to do so. So nothing is forced. You don't have to if you're not comfortable. But at the beginning of every workout, I kind of set expectations. And even if it's not a workout, whenever we're starting a call, the same way that Eric did here, like, this is what we're going to do today. So if it's a workout, it's a 45-minute workout comprised of our warm up, workout, and cool down, but also 15 minutes after for anyone that wants to stick around and chat. And we do that every day. So that's part of it to get some buy-in is like, it's already happening. Other people are doing it. There's benefit from it. There's space to do it. And then once we've set that, then at the end of 45 minutes, workout is wrapping up. Everybody's cooling down. Be like, hey, if you guys have to run, like that's fine. But here's the theme for today. So to your question, Eric, having a theme every day when we show up. So on Mondays, yeah, having a theme and then using that to facilitate the conversation. And one of the things that we're trying to do is create a positive spin or a positive outlook on whatever is happening. So one, give people a place to share and be vulnerable, but then try and get them to reframe it. So on Monday, one of the theme questions that we ask is like, what are you doing to set yourself up for success this week? Like, it's hard. You're in the same space the entire day, and that might feel stressful and confining and all of that, and you have a hard time shutting off at the end of the day. But by asking them what they're doing to be successful, they may not have even thought about it, but now they're forced to. And then they hear from other people that are doing things like scheduling out their days or their weeks or setting goals or whatever it might be. So yeah, definitely having prompts, and then giving people throughout that 15-minute space to share.
Yeah. Are you specifically um, calling on people to share, or how do you prevent the everyone starts talking at once problem?
Yeah, it definitely needs to be facilitated. And one of the things I forgot to mention is at the beginning of all these, we put everyone on mute and again, set expectations about how we're going to communicate. So in the workout, even if we have 40 people, it's like everybody on mute. If you have a question, then you got to like raise your hand visually if we're checking out all the windows and come off mute or type it into the chat box. And then in these facilitated conversations afterwards, um, I tell everyone that we're going to have space for everybody to go. So wait until you're called on. So I just go based on the gallery view layout and just walk from top to bottom, left to right, and just call people out. So I'd be like, oh, Jessica, like, how's your day going? We got about, we have 10 people, we got 15 minutes, you got about a minute to share. So that again sets that expectation and go from there.
Got it. So you'll specifically call on people. Have you experimented with breakout rooms for like larger class sizes? Like if you had more than 10, maybe?
Yeah, so with class sizes, like with our normal workouts, we don't do breakout rooms just because we're doing it every single day. Breakout rooms, I think, are an awesome feature, but you would want to have somebody facilitating or leading each breakout room.
Right.
So where we did do this was we led a network out with one of our fellow members who's created this thing called Networkouts, where he connects people through fitness for professional career networking. And so we ran this workout for him. There's about 45 people, but we planned to have facilitated conversations after. And so we designated leads for the breakout rooms. And so what that does is Zoom allows you to, the way that we have, 8 of us here right now. Let's say that there's 40, you can decide how many breakout rooms you want to create. And you can either have it be random or pre-assign it. And so random is easy because it's quick. But if you want to designate people, then you want to do a little bit of that work ahead of time. And so if you're really trying to make this streamlined, I would recommend having a co-host, which is something you can create at the beginning of a Zoom thing when you're actually setting up the meeting. Create a co-host and then have that person be your kind of like IT or admin. You're on mute there, Eric.
Classic. Trevor, you had a question around how you're doing class bookings, which I think is a good one. Do you want to ask that one, or are you allowed on that one?
Yeah, no worries. I'm just curious, you guys. Sorry, my girlfriend's also on a sales call right now. You guys know the struggle, but I'm just curious how your ops are for inviting people to the class. For example, we use MindBody. I'm not sure if you're on MindBody, but right now we're on Google Hangouts, actually transferring over to Zoom. And in our Google Hangout, we just have the link for people to sign up for. So I'm curious if you're using like some type of automation or integration to get people the links to the class as well as the passwords.
Nice. Super good question, and something that we definitely struggled through at the beginning, but we use MindBody as well. So this will be an easy answer for you. We created all of the virtual classes the same way we would our physical classes. So we have our MindBody system set up. We have our virtual different types of classes. Brock, who's also on here, he's actually leading our breathwork classes. And then we have our HIIT classes, we have foam rolling and a few others. And so we've created those within the schedule. So that's the first part, so people can sign up for it. And then MindBody has a feature where you can send an automated email when people book or reserve a class. And so what we did there is every week we have just one link. Okay. And so we keep that master link, put it into that reservation field. And so then as people book their class, they get an auto ping that has the link to it.
Gotcha. And then the password, everything is there for the week.
Yeah. And so that's less work from the admin side, but then you run the risk of people sharing that out and then getting, diluted or bombed or whatever you want. But we've been believing in people. We've been believing in humanity, giving them the opportunity to mess up, and it's been great so far.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nate, Jessica had a good question too about how you've changed your programming. Jess, you want to ask that one?
So I'm not super familiar with what you guys do at Project 13, but just hearing you hit classes, breath work, I'm just wondering, aside from shortening your classes by 15 minutes, have they really changed? Because people does everyone have, the mats and the weights and the bands and all the equipment, or have you had to get creative, or are you finding that your classes are still pretty similar to what you guys were doing at the gym?
Great question. And we have had to change a lot for our workouts. So we have a lot of equipment that we normally use. So free weights, dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, cardio equipment, bands, all that stuff. And we are now running workouts. The programming is to cater to people who have nothing. So it's body weight only workouts. And we were a little bit hesitant and a little bit unsure around this path forward when we were first starting, but the alternatives were to do nothing or to try to cater to everyone. And I'm sure you guys have all heard this, but when you try to please everyone, you please no one. And so what we decided is let's just do what we can do best for the majority of our members. And so that's who we're trying to serve, is people who don't have anything. And then we give modification suggestions for people who do have weights. So within the format that we're creating, so it might be 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off of a movement. Well, if you have weights, we'll do the same 30 seconds and use some weights for it. So that's how we've been doing the changes.
Nate, how much of your time when you're doing a Zoom, like an actual Zoom workout class, how much of the time is focused on you providing general instruction for everyone, or actually going and maybe helping correct form or doing shout outs or engaging with people?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact ratio, but I'd say a third demonstrating and 2/3 coaching, correcting, and being this close to the camera. So we'll lead the warm up, and that we usually do, and so people can watch along with that. Then we'll have 1 to 3 other segments of the workout itself where we'll demonstrate the movements. And then once they've been demonstrated the first time, then sit in front of the camera and help coach people. The way to help people remember what is next, in the gym, we have a whiteboard up, we've written everything. We'll type into the chat box what's going on. So for instance, if it's a circuit with 4 different movements and the reps, we'll type that in. So I, finish up our warm up. All right, here's what we're going to do next. Check your chat box. Boom. Cool. Any questions on the format? No questions. Cool. Then I demonstrate everything. Any questions on the movements? No. Cool. Now we're going to start. And then I'll hang out right here and be able to coach people on movement and all that stuff. So the way that, again, we run it in the gym where there's a lot of that individualized coaching, we then are able to provide that same thing.
Yeah, that's great. Brian had a good question around like the uniformity of the protocols that you're mentioning between like you and maybe some of the other coaches at Project 13. Brian, do you want to ask that? I think you're on mute at the moment.
Yeah, so just how you make sure that everybody follows the same protocols as far as your coaches when it comes to their balance uniforms, members, how to close things up, how to open things up, icebreakers and things like that. Do you have that kind of written out for them all to follow and making sure that there's specific guidelines?
We do roughly at this point, but we definitely did not at the beginning. At the beginning, we're just like, something's better than nothing, and we didn't know what was going to be the best. Things that we don't care about is backgrounds. The only thing that we try to suggest for the coaches is, can people see you? So if I was having the light behind me and you guys can't see me very well, then we're not going to want that. So not being backlit, a few of those general recommendations. And then the other big one is using some sort of a headphone or a device like that can help people hear you. So whether you're right in front of the computer or way back demonstrating, people can hear you the same way. So those are the two big things.
Yeah, and that's a good one. We can add to ours is making sure you have headphones.
Yeah, and it's been a game changer. And a lot of people comment about how nice it is there. Other than that, we try to encourage and empower our coaches to bring themselves to the workouts, to the program, to the members. So it's okay to be you as long as you give people the space for the main things, which is hey, this is welcome. Here's kind of the expectations. Here's our workout. And then at the end, we don't force them to do the facilitated conversations the same way. It's just hey, this stuff has worked. You can do the same or you can change it up, but we just want to make sure we have space for a conversation.
Yeah, because that just adds to the community value, right?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest selling point is the way you're marketing it is. This is a way to kind of connect and be with people. Yeah. Besides drinking a bottle of wine with your friends on happy hours.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, Jessica, you kind of asked this, and I mentioned that we do a breathwork class and foam rolling and some other stuff. We were not able to offer that prior to opening virtually because we didn't have the space and people didn't have the time to be coming back to the gym physically. So now we've been able to partner with awesome people like Brock. We actually partnered with a gym out in Chicago so we could offer different class times and this other stuff because there's a lot of opportunity within this. There's no physical limitations of class size or geography. So we're offering more because people can shut their computer down or turn off their work for 30 minutes and pop into a 1 p.m. breathwork class, or they can try something else. And so that's something that's been another silver lining is just see what people are interested in and see if they'll want to take advantage.
Yeah. Nate, how have you dealt with music? Because I know music is obviously a big part of some of the classes that you offered. Are you doing anything for that at the moment? And would be curious to hear why or why not.
Good question. Unfortunately, we haven't found a good plugin for Zoom that would allow music to play to everybody's computers in a way that doesn't have the usual issues of playing from a third-party speaker through these and out. So what we do is, again, encouraging everybody to be on mute during the workout so they don't hear each other breathing heavily. But what that allows too is hey, why don't you put on some tunes that you like? So then they can kind of be their own DJ, they can do their thing. But during some other classes like Brock's breathwork class, because that is a lot more relaxed and peaceful and a shared experience in a different way, he'll actually play his own music that it does work to go through the computer speakers. So it may not be the 100% best quality, but it's still quite good. And by having that unifying thing in more of a meditative or relaxed setting, it works pretty awesome. So,
Brock, do you mind actually sharing how you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty elementary, but I just have my phone right next to the computer and just play music. And so that was like also like I've been kind of trying to figure out a better way to do that, but that's kind of what I just started doing. I just kind of like made it up as I was going, and it seems to work. Oh, I mean, okay, until I find something better right now.
Do you actually? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jess. Why don't you ask? We may have the same.
Well, I actually just wanted to say that there are some advanced settings in Zoom that allows you to play music from your computer. And forgive me if you've already like tried this and it hasn't worked, but we found it really successful in teaching our own classes. And I mean, maybe this isn't the moment, but I'd be happy to like walk you through like the steps of that, because the clients can hear it no problem. It's a little bit lower for me, like when I have the AirPods in, but as long as you like make sure with a kind of like, are you guys good? Do you need it louder or softer? And can you hear my voice? Like they're happy and it's loud and it's bumping for them. And then for us, it's just a little bit softer. So maybe something I could,
Yeah, I would
walk
love
through at
to.
some point.
Is that a specific setting in Zoom that you use, Jess?
Yeah. It's advanced settings. That I can walk anyone through. I didn't figure it out. My boss was like, this is what you have to do.
Well,
I could not figure it out to
Yeah,
save my life. I was doing the same thing with the phone and it was not working.
that's how we are also doing it over at Drift.
Nice.
awesome. Welcome, Christy. Very cool. Nate, when you're first introducing folks, like when classes first starting, what are you doing at that point? Because it always feels like inevitably there are people that are coming maybe a few minutes early or a few minutes late. Are you kind of waiting for people to gather? Do you do anything to start at the start of class?
Good question. With the class-based setting, we try to start stuff like right on time because we give space at the end of the workout for people to interact if they want to. But if we're doing more like group discussions, like the personal development course that I lead, where that's like a facilitated conversation the entire time, then we'll give people an extra few minutes to log in. And you were mentioning, I did a talk last night for a company, super fun, is to about like 500 people live, which was rad. But same thing, they gave everyone 4 minutes to get on. And it's interesting because while we'd love to interact with people and you want to acknowledge every person that's coming on, if it's a really big attendee list, it can be difficult to try to acknowledge all of them. So it is almost better to just put everybody on mute and just kind of hang out. And if you are the group leader and you want to just kind of have a monologue and chat through, feel free. But in smaller settings where we're doing like a 10, 15, 20 person workout, I'll just kind of acknowledge people as they're logging in, like, what's up, Brock? Welcome, Trevor, Zach, just like quick name acknowledgements. We found that in itself is great. And so while you may not have a conversation with everybody, just acknowledging them has been great.
And like on the flip side of that, Nate, like when have you found anything that like makes it a natural point in time to end, like when class is over, particularly if you have kind of like a social dialogue that's going on?
Yeah, I think having a plan is the biggest thing, right? So if for us, when we finish our 45-minute workout, like we finish at 45 minutes and say, hey, that's the time. If you want to stick around, you may. So that gives people permission, right? Whether it's spoken, unspoken, needed, not needed, permission to log off if they're done, or to stick around and be like, all right, that's that line in the sand. And then when we do the conversation piece, saying that it's 15 minutes, it might finish up a little bit early if there's not as many people, or it gives space to have more continued conversation. But with our 15-minute mental health conversations at the end, let's say it was all of us 9 on the screen, go around and check in with everybody, say everybody gets about a minute each. And then depending on how much time is left, I usually do a checkout like, hey, how you doing today, 1 to 10? 1 being the worst day, 10 being the best. And if it was a really big group, like maybe that's all that there's time for. But then everybody's still heard. They feel like they're not alone in all this. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. In the last minute or so, if there isn't anything that we covered, like feel free, raise a hand. Otherwise, Nate, really appreciate your time to be able to go through and review all this stuff. To quickly summarize, it sounds like there's a big focus on social connection, spending 15 minutes at the end of the class and doing actually a theme such that there's a topic for people to talk about and actually addressing people almost on like a one-off, like by name. The other thing I was surprised by what you mentioned was the ratio of correction, like, focusing on people being close to the screen versus demonstrating. Like 1/3 to 2/3 was really surprising to me, where you're spending 2/3 of your time almost actually focusing on other people, not just instructing, which I thought was really fascinating. So yeah, feel free to raise a hand if there are other questions. Otherwise, Nate, just really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for everyone for being able to join in, spend 30 minutes on Zoom. I know some people are challenged with Zoom outs where it's getting a little bit old, but hopefully we can continue to use the tools to just create better experiences for people.
Yeah.
Nate, to finish up, is there anything else that you'd like to shout out? Like where could people find you if we want to maybe follow up with questions and stuff like that?
Yeah. If you guys want to either shoot me an email, it's nate@project13gyms.com. You can follow me on Instagram, follow the gym on Instagram. If you guys are interested in checking out one of our workouts, seeing how we do it, you can check that out from our website page. If you're interested in more of like the personal development stuff, where we're getting to work with people in a lot smaller setting, helping people recapture their time, you can check out my website, thenatechambers.com. So a few different ways. Love to connect with all of you. If you got additional questions, please feel free to reach out. I know the phrase "we're all in this together" is kind of getting overused, but I do agree we are, and happy to help. So feel free to shout out.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Much appreciate the time. Enjoy
Thank
Friday.
you guys.
See
Happy
ya.
Friday. Enjoy your weekend.